today. At the National Institute of the Dramatic Arts, NIDA, there's a long-standing tradition. When final-year students stage a performance, alumni are invited to attend as part of the audience. Following the show, there's a social gathering where aspiring actors, set designers, costume designers, prop makers, and others can mingle with both prominent and lesser-known figures from the industry. The hope is to receive genuine feedback on their work and establish connections that may benefit their future careers. One such alumni, an accomplished actress whose name is intentionally omitted for privacy, found herself at this post-production event. Reflecting on her time as a student some years ago, she smiled at how well her career had progressed since then. Having gained recognition locally, she had ventured into Hollywood and now had the luxury of choosing her roles. In fact, she was contemplating accepting a role as an escort simply for the thrill of it. Despite the eager attention from attendees wanting to meet her, she remained focused on the purpose of her presence there. She sought out members of the production team to provide feedback and engage in meaningful conversations. During one interaction with Sarah, the talented set designer, the actress praised her innovative use of space and seamless transitions between sets. As she prepared to move on, Sarah hesitated before speaking softly. "My father would like to invite you to dinner tonight." The actress paused, momentarily caught off guard. She contemplated the implications. After all these years, the situation she had feared in the back of her mind seemed to materialize. But then she reasoned, the man had a grown daughter. Perhaps it wouldn't be as dire as she imagined. Surely, he wouldn't expect anything untoward with his child present. Gratitude mingled with apprehension as she thought back to his pivotal role in her journey to becoming an actress. It was at his suggestion that she had pursued this path, abandoning her studies in economics for the stage. Yet, there lingered a sense of unease, a reminder of their past encounter. He had been a client, albeit only once, but the memory lingered. As thoughts of potential repercussions flashed through her mind, she mentally reviewed the contingency plans she had devised over the years. Any hint of her past could attract unwanted attention from the media, and she was prepared to defend herself if necessary. Though confident in her ability to weather the storm, she hoped fervently to avoid such a confrontation. What harm could there be in accepting dinner with this man? Since their initial and only encounter, she had been consumed by curiosity about the nature of their meeting. So, she agreed to meet the mysterious Mr. X, arranging to do so at a restaurant conveniently located near her hotel. This allowed her time to socialize for another hour before returning to freshen up. Before stepping into the restaurant, she made a conscious effort to appear composed despite the underlying nervousness. If there were any attempts at coercion, she was prepared to confront them head-on, supported by the information her lawyer already had about the man's daughter. Upon entering the private dining room, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Seated at the table was the girl she remembered from NIDA, along with another young woman who appeared to be slightly younger. Her gaze then settled on a man in his late 40s, unmistakably Mr. X from their previous encounter 14 years ago. As introductions were made, the man, David Brown, stood to greet her, accompanied by his wife and daughters. After the main course was ordered and consumed, amidst the customary inquiries directed at her, David interrupted with a request for attention. He explained that now that his youngest daughter, Wendy, had turned 18, he was prepared to share his side of a long-held story. Grateful for the actress's presence to corroborate certain details, he proceeded to unravel the narrative. Observing the eager anticipation on the faces of the younger girls and feeling a similar anticipation herself, the actress consciously relaxed. David, visibly nervous, proceeded to disclose his motives for sharing this peculiar tale. Firstly, it was to honor a promise, acknowledging the actress's role in the events of the past decade and a half and alleviating any concerns she may have had regarding potential threats to her reputation. Secondly, it was to finally reveal to his daughters why they had been separated from their birth mother for over 14 years. He confessed that he had intended to disclose the truth to Sarah upon her 18th birthday, but she had never inquired, a testament to the love and care provided by Maria, his wife. Following this explanation, he prepared his daughters for an apology, acknowledging his past decisions and seeking their forgiveness. With everyone on the edge of their seats, David commenced his narrative from the very beginning. Meanwhile, across the country, a woman lay awake in a budget motel room, her mind swirling with regrets as she listened to the loud snores of her companion. Martha, present day. I don't believe I was born with a sense of entitlement. Rather, it developed over time as a result of my privileged upbringing. Raised in a comfortable middle-class family, I lacked nothing. With minimal effort, I obtained a university degree in arts and a teaching diploma. Thanks to my father's connections, I secured a prestigious teaching position without having to start from the bottom in less desirable locations. For 5 years, I dabbled in various hobbies, interests, and relationships without committing to any one pursuit. Then, nearing 28, my father urged me to settle down and make something of my life. By then, he had risen to become the chief aide to a federal senator, harboring ambitions he knew he might never fulfill himself. Perhaps he saw in me the potential to achieve what he could not, or maybe he simply believed in my untapped abilities. Together, we devised a plan for me to become the country's first female prime minister within the next 2 decades. The plan involved building a successful career, starting a family, joining a political party, establishing ties to a mainstream church, engaging in charitable work, and more. Fueled by this newfound ambition, everything seemed within reach. Through a church committee, I met my future husband in an unexpected encounter. During a meeting, I approached a workman in the church and was struck by his presence and scent. Less than a year later, we were married. Despite his profession as a cabinetmaker, his income complemented mine, allowing us to afford a comfortable home in an affluent neighborhood. We postponed having children as I climbed the ranks within the local Liberal Party, eventually securing the position of deputy head and later headmistress at an exclusive girls' school. This achievement came despite taking 2 years of maternity leave for the births of our daughters, Sarah in 1998 and Wendy 2 years later. Though I was eager to return to work soon after each birth, my father advised me to wait, emphasizing the importance of public perception of my motherhood. At the time our story truly begins, Sarah was 6 and Wendy 4. We had upgraded to an even nicer home, and I juggled my career as headmistress with leadership roles in various charitable organizations. Despite the demanding schedule of committee meetings, fundraisers, and social obligations, I was poised to lead our party's ticket in the upcoming state election. Life was hectic but fulfilling, with the constant expectation to maintain a polished appearance for the public eye. I owe much of my ability to juggle everything to Dave. Being self-employed, he had the flexibility to start work early and be home in time to pick up the girls from school and daycare. He took charge of their care in the evenings and handled most of the weekend activities while I was occupied elsewhere or taking time to recharge for the week ahead. Despite my intentions to devote more time to Dave and the girls after our marriage ended, I still felt like an outsider in their lives due to my absence, and other responsibilities pulled me away from them once again. In addition to my other obligations, I had to maintain my professional teaching accreditation, which required attending 2 conferences annually. Unfortunately, I forgot to inform Dave about the last conference until the last minute. He had arranged for a babysitter and planned a romantic weekend, so he was understandably disappointed when I couldn't join him. I assured him we would have our own celebration when I returned, but he seemed distant, and I promised myself to be more understanding in the future, realizing that a divorce at this point would be disastrous. Dave's unusual silence on Friday night and his late call on Saturday suggested he was still upset. Our conversation seemed routine at first, but as I rushed to end it due to my late-night commitments, a slip of the tongue revealed my infidelity. Alan, my lover of nearly a year, was inadvertently mentioned. It wasn't a deliberate decision to have an affair, but after achieving everything else I desired, it seemed like why not? Alan, who worked for the party's public relations firm, became involved during a weekend away following a successful charity deal celebration. The fear of being caught initially gripped me, but as days passed without any repercussions, I grew complacent. The situation didn't end there. Alan, young and attractive, brought excitement and passion to our encounters. The thrill of the forbidden and the slight risk involved added to the allure, and honestly, the thought of ending it never seriously crossed my mind. Our sexual chemistry remained vibrant even after a year, perhaps because we only met sporadically. After years of hard work, I felt entitled to indulge in some luxuries, never considering the sacrifices Dave made for our family. While I may not have been born with a sense of entitlement, I certainly developed one over time. That night, as Alan sat naked on my bed listening to my conversation with Dave, I felt my heart sink and my jaw drop. We quickly realized this was the worst crisis we had faced yet. Alan dismissed my concerns about being caught. I had always been cautious and meticulous in our arrangements. I had a checklist for every rendezvous, meetings had to be in distant locations, disguises were necessary, and I ensured Dave's whereabouts were known. When traveling, we always stayed in separate rooms with adjoining doors. I was adamant that not a trace of Alan would accompany me back to my husband, knowing that if Dave ever suspected infidelity, Alan would be the prime suspect. We were always careful, except for that fateful weekend. Although the trip wasn't strictly political, I assumed Dave's commitment to Sarah's soccer finals meant there was no risk of him showing up unexpectedly. I believed it was safe to have Alan at my hotel as long as I was cautious. But Dave's casual words and my slip-up, whether due to wine or lack of sleep caused by Alan's presence, shattered my confidence. It took me some time to remember my contingency plan. Despite the late hour, I called my father, who then contacted his lawyer. Looking back, I realized I should have handled things differently. Perhaps if I had gone home immediately, ended the affair, and begged Dave's forgiveness, he might have forgiven me. He valued family above all else, and it was just one affair, after all. Whether the violent attack Dave unleashed shortly afterward was inevitable or triggered by my reaction to being caught, I'll never know. My father was appalled by my actions, reminding me that I had handed Dave the power to ruin everything I had worked for. He arranged for me to catch the next flight home. Alan's response to the situation was unexpected, although perhaps it shouldn't have been. I had feigned deep feelings for him to heighten the experience, and his desperate plea for me to leave my husband and marry him showed his love for me. It gave me pause, but only briefly. I realized I didn't love him, I loved Dave. While I cared for Alan and enjoyed the attention of a younger man, leaving my husband for him was out of the question. Furthermore, being involved with a partner over a decade younger, for whom I had left my husband and disrupted my family, would undoubtedly subject me to ridicule and ruin any chance of salvaging my career. Despite this, I couldn't help but feel sorry for Alan, who had fallen deeply in love with me. To appease him, I promised to visit him after he returned from his week away, once my home situation had settled. After all, just because my husband had discovered my affair didn't necessarily mean I had to end it, right? Only if he insisted and threatened to use that knowledge against me. I won't delve into the specifics, but with the help of my father, his lawyer, and my sister, we intercepted Dave and the girls as they were leaving for the zoo on Sunday morning. While my sisters took the girls, we convinced Dave to return to the house. Feeling exhausted, I left the discussion to my father and the lawyer. Initially apprehensive about Dave's background as a tradesman, my father had warmed up to him over the years. However, when it came down to supporting me or maintaining their friendship, my father didn't hesitate to take my side. Despite feeling sorry for Dave, I couldn't deny the devastation I had caused him, which pained me deeply. I tried to convey my remorse through eye contact, but Dave remained stoic, staring blankly at the table. The ensuing confrontation was intense, with threats of legal action including gag orders, lawsuits for libel and slander, flying back and forth. Dave remained emotionless throughout, even when questioned about evidence of my infidelity. He admitted to having none, indicating that he only became suspicious after I inadvertently revealed the truth on Saturday night. Reflecting later, I realized that all the precautions I had taken to conceal my affair had been in vain. A friend of Dave's had overheard Alan boasting about our relationship and had informed Dave. Dave's seemingly innocuous remark about Alan was a deliberate test, and my response confirmed his worst fears. The realization of the anguish he must have experienced rocked me to my core. However, my father showed no such qualms. After dismissing the lawyer from the room, he hinted at the possibility of fabricating evidence of Dave's infidelity to protect my reputation. Dave remained impassive throughout. I sensed Dave's emotional shutdown until the lawyer returned and discussed custody arrangements, causing Dave's demeanor to harden. Unable to bear his gaze, I turned away. He didn't deserve any of this. Dave loved his daughters deeply and devoted every spare moment to them, allowing me the freedom to be away from home so often. The confrontation concluded with my father informing Dave that myself and the girls would be staying with him for a few days to give Dave a taste of loneliness if he didn't comply. We would return on Tuesday evening for our annual masquerade party. My father assumed Dave would maintain the facade of a happy family for the event. As a parting shot, my father pledged financial support for me while ensuring Dave faced financial constraints and limited access to quality legal assistance. My father's loyalty to me was unwavering, severing any chance of reconciliation with Dave. As I left, Dave appeared utterly defeated. Despite the weight on my conscience, I hugged him from behind and whispered reassurance, but received no response. Alone with my father, he berated me for my affair, venting his frustration at what he had done to a man he had once respected. He warned me that any evidence of my infidelity could spell the end of our plan. I assured him of my discretion. When the girls and I returned home on Tuesday night, I was met with warmth for the girls, but a frosty reception for myself. Despite considering delaying our return, I proceeded as planned due to my father's impending fishing trip and the need to prepare for the upcoming party. Dave barely acknowledged me, retreating to the guest room where he had been sleeping. Through the locked door, I apologized for my actions and reassured him of my intentions. While I intended to end things with Alan immediately, his emotional attachment posed a threat to my career. Unlike Dave, he didn't need evidence to cause damage. I decided to continue seeing him temporarily while acting distant to ensure his cooperation. I attempted to explain this to Dave through the door, along with my plans to be late home the following Monday, but received no response. With no time to dwell on Dave's reaction, I focused on preparing for the party. The masquerade party had become an annual tradition since we moved into our mini mansion 8 years ago. Held on no particular occasion, it was primarily a social event aimed at impressing the influential figures in our community and showcasing our supposedly happy family. My father never attended, fearing it would overshadow my own presence. Thanks to advice from professionals, the party had evolved into a highly anticipated social gathering. With a DJ, dance floor, and elaborate decorations, it had become a must-attend event on the social calendar. The guest list was meticulously curated, with each attendee potentially beneficial to my career. Ensuring Dave's cooperation became my main focus in the days leading up to the party. In short, I managed to secure his reluctant agreement to attend and participate. While relieved, our interaction ended there. He mostly ignored me afterward, leaving me to handle the party preparations alone. By Saturday night, I was exhausted from a week of crisis management. I indulged in a couple of glasses of wine to unwind before Alan's arrival. As my publicist, he was inevitably present, making it challenging to keep him and Dave apart, or so I thought. I vividly remember welcoming guests at the front door, determined to stand out as the hostess. Over 50 influential individuals attended, including members of my school board, local clergy, politicians, and party elites, even judges. As the evening progressed, Dave surprised me with a glass of punch laced with vodka to help me relax. Grateful for the gesture, I accepted it and drank it, despite already feeling the effects of the alcohol. The rest of the night became a blur, and I woke up the next morning with a hangover, unable to recall much. Dave reassured me that I hadn't embarrassed myself, mentioning that I had mingled with guests before falling asleep. Relieved, I spent the day recovering in bed, only to wake up early the next morning to find Dave in the kitchen. "What are you doing up so early?" I asked, to which he responded with a disbelieving look, setting the tone for our conversation. "I've barely slept since I discovered that the woman I loved and thought loved me was betraying me," Dave confessed. Looking back, I realized I should have responded more calmly to his revelation, but I snapped. Days of guilt and frustration, coupled with the memory loss from the party and a wasted day in bed, had taken their toll. "Isn't it you who always says, if you can't fix a problem, don't dwell on it?" Dad explained how things will unfold. "We should accept it and move on with life," I retorted. Dave remained rigid in his chair, his next words laced with anger. "Accept being cuckolded?" His tone was sharp, his eyes burning into mine. Attempting to soothe his anger, I replied, "Just for now, dear. It'll pass soon. Oh, and remember, I'll be out late tonight. I'm meeting Alan." Dave sprang to his feet so abruptly that his chair crashed to the ground. He stood there, fists clenched and unclenched, his fury palpable. "Do you think I'll accept being humiliated, stripped of pride and choice?" he seethed. "Your dad may live by if you have someone by the balls, their hearts and minds will soon follow, but I refuse to be controlled like that." With that, he stormed out for his morning run, leaving me to ponder his words. Did he have options besides towing the line? I doubted it. Shrugging off the thought, I searched for my phone, then prepared Sarah's school lunch as a peace offering to Dave. As I got ready for work, the kids woke up, and I left without another chance to speak with him. Looking back, I wish I had at least hugged his children that day. Dave reflects on that fateful Monday, realizing its significance beyond just the breakdown of his marriage and the upheaval in his children's lives. There was no doubt in my mind that I had a significant influence in your lives, and with the decision to end the marriage, I believed you'd be better off with me. I always knew your birth mother was ambitious and self-centered, but her affair shattered any remaining pride I had in her achievements. Her intention to continue the affair confirmed her egocentricity. However, the courts weren't likely to see it my way. I consulted several solicitors, all of whom agreed that my chances of gaining primary custody were slim. They suggested that if I could get Martha to leave the family home, my chances would improve dramatically. I knew I had to do something drastic to make her leave. Interestingly, it was Martha's father and her solicitor who inadvertently provided the solution. They outlined the legal obstacles so clearly that I didn't even consider escape as an option. They probably thought they had left me with a reasonable course of action, but it wasn't acceptable to me. Being law-abiding citizens, they didn't anticipate the path I ultimately chose. So, what did you do, Dad? I'll get to that. Let me describe the phone calls I received from your birth mother that day. The first call came a little after 9 a.m. 9:06 a.m. Dave, it's me. Alan's boss just called. He said because of what happened with Alan at the party on Saturday, his company won't represent me anymore. If this gets out, it could hurt my chances of preselection. What happened? What did I do to Alan? They wouldn't tell me. It's not alleged, dear. You need him in the groin in front of about 30 witnesses. I have it all on camera if you want to see. I didn't. Sorry, dear, I have to go. 10:23 a.m. Dave, what aren't you telling me? The diocese secretary called. They want me to resign from all the church committees I'm on. Not just step down, but leave altogether. They wouldn't say why. What happened Saturday night after I had too much to drink? I assume the bishop instructed them to distance you from the church after catching someone inappropriately touching you in the downstairs bathroom on Saturday. What? Why? Sorry, dear, I have to go. 10:42 a.m. Oh, Dave. I checked my phone messages. Half the people I know called to tell me what I did to you. What did they mean? What did I do to you, Dave? I'm not entirely certain, dear. Perhaps they're referring to your behavior on the dance floor, which some found rather inappropriate. Or maybe it's because when they asked me why I didn't intervene, I told them about your threats and demands regarding other men. You didn't? I certainly did. You and your father thought you'd cornered me into accepting your twisted plan. But I found another way, and it only cost me a bit of public embarrassment. Well, after tomorrow's newspaper, quite a lot of embarrassment. But, Dave, when I asked you on Sunday if I behaved strangely during those blackout moments, you said no. You might have heard what you wanted to hear, dear. What I actually said was you acted within your usual character, and I'll stand by that. Apparently, that's how sluts behave. I can't believe I lost control like that. Can't you call the bishop and others to explain it wasn't really me? That I lose control when I drink too much? Why would I do that for you, dear? Because you're my husband, and husbands stand up for their wives. Like you stood up for me when your father threatened to ruin me if I didn't agree to let you sleep with other men? Dave, you know it wasn't like that. I made a mistake and tried to fix it as quickly as possible. I only slept with Alan, and I was planning to end it after 1 or 2 more times. 3, at most. Dave, could you come home so we can talk? I just need to wait another hour. The head of the school board is coming over. Yes, I know what she wants to discuss. Most of the board was there on Saturday night, remember? I doubt your chances. Besides, I'm already home. I just finished an interview with the local media. Now, if there's nothing else, I have to contemplate whether there's any aspect of your life I haven't completely destroyed yet. Present day, a restaurant. Dave concludes his story, ***. There was silence on the line after that. I went to work, picked you girls up, and when we returned home, it was clear your mother had left in a hurry, abandoning the house. She went into hiding in another state, too ashamed to face the public for months. By the time she resurfaced, the judge had ruled she'd abandoned the family home, granting me custody. Did her father offer any help? No, not really. He made a threatening call after his fishing trip, but that was about it. Seems his employer gave him an ultimatum, either cut ties with his daughter or resign. He chose to retire. Whether he couldn't afford lawyers or they advised him against it, I'm not sure. We never heard from his legal team again. Sadly, he was still asking to see his grandchildren when he passed away from a heart attack about a year later. Your birth mother did ask a few times for me to bring you girls to where she was hiding, but by then, I had met Maria, the only mom you remember, and didn't want to confuse you. I heard she fell in with a bad crowd after that, and I lost track of her. If you want, I can try to find her contact details. Neither of the young adults seemed particularly interested. And that, girls, is why you should be cautious with alcohol. All eyes turned to the actress. Girls, considering what your dad just shared, I think I understand why he invited me here today. He once promised to tell me the whole story. Surprisingly, I'm amazed the media didn't uncover this earlier. Before I continue, please promise not to repeat anything I say. After receiving nods of agreement, she continued. I never imagined becoming an actress until your dad suggested it. Like many college students, I struggled financially. I ended up doing some high-end escort work, but not in the way you might think. I was more like a companion for dinners or events. The agency I worked for never encouraged anything more. Your dad found me on an escort website because he needed someone to pass as his ex-wife at a masquerade party. That's right. I searched through escort websites until I found someone who resembled my ex-wife. Well, initially, I was hesitant, but the amount your dad offered changed my mind. I agreed to bring my boyfriend along. The actress paused, cautious of her words' impact on her career. Your dad instructed me to be at a certain address at 9 p.m. Kent, and I arrived, and your dad let us in through the back gate. He gave me a dress and a mask. Let me interject for a moment. I want everyone to hear the whole story. The party was in full swing, and most guests were quite intoxicated, thanks to me spiking the punch with vodka. It was amusing watching her try to play hostess while staying close to her boyfriend. I saw her steadily drinking, so I spiked her drink with 3 sleeping pills. It took about 10 minutes for her to feel drowsy, and I guided her to our bedroom. Once she fell asleep, I changed her clothes and removed her mask. And the final touch? Using the same perfume she always wore. The actress nodded in understanding before continuing her story. I put on the dress, although it wasn't a perfect fit. Then, I added a bit of perfume and wore the mask. I expected your father to escort me to the party while Kent entertained himself, but it was much stranger than that. After some brief instructions, your father told Kent and me to act like a couple, but to avoid engaging in conversation. That was a bit challenging, but we decided to hit the dance floor to discourage any interactions. Kent and I danced closely, and he was quite handsy. I noticed most people looking uncomfortable and glancing towards your father. He seemed oblivious. There was one guy who kept trying to interrupt us, but your father had warned us to avoid him. After a few dances, I went to the restroom, and Kent followed me. Once inside, he lifted me onto the vanity, kissed me, and, well, he got a bit handsy. I'm sure he intended to go further, but then someone barged in, clearly needing to use the facilities. He turned red and hurried out. He was a large man with a red beard, right? I believe so. Bishop Carling. Oh my goodness. Well, that certainly put a damper on things. After that, Kent wasn't too keen on continuing our bathroom escapade. We returned to the dance floor, but then he pulled me into the shadows of some trees. We were making out when suddenly a floodlight illuminated us, and everything went silent. We turned to see everyone staring at us. There wasn't much we could do but return to the dance floor. That persistent guy your father showed me a photo of kept trying to intervene. He kept calling me pet names even after I told him to go away. About that time, I noticed a group of people surrounding your father, looking quite unhappy. They seemed to be accusing him of something. She glanced at Dave with raised eyebrows. Well, first the bishop, then the head of the school board approached me, asking about my wife's behavior. I told them the truth, that SHE demanded the freedom to do as she pleased with other men. I also explained how I discovered her affair and how she and her father threatened me with ruin if I objected. I could sense the sincerity in your father's voice, and I'm sure they did too. At one point, everyone turned and gave me intense stares. It was quite uncomfortable. Yes, I apologize for that. The outrage at that moment could have fueled a small war for a month. I'm not sure if the bishop would have mentioned what he saw in the restroom until you were illuminated by the security spotlight I activated, but he certainly didn't hold back afterward. Nobody could believe that my prim and proper wife could act in such a way. I think every spouse, and even a few husbands, hugged me in the next few minutes. That all changed when the next spectacle unfolded on the dance floor. Do you have to bring that up? I'm not exactly proud of it. Then you tell them. The actress paused to recall the events from many years ago. Well, Kent and I were just dancing, minding our own business, you know? People started whispering to each other, and soon the number of dancers dwindled. Even more people were staring at me and Kent. Then that guy your father showed us a photo of approached, grabbed my arm, and tried to pull me away. I had had enough. I turned and kneed him right where it counts. It was quite comical. He did the whole movie thing, you know, his eyes crossed, and he started to sink to his knees. He must have tried to stop himself because he reached out to grab me. Kent, being the protective type he is, I married him, you know, grabbed the guy's arm, swung him around, and punched him. Lifted him right off his feet and sent him tumbling to the ground. The guy just sat there with one hand on his face and the other, well, where it hurt. Everyone started applauding. It was surreal. That was your ex's lover, I presume. Yes, his name was Alan. I might have told people he was her lover, which is why he kept trying to interfere. What happened to him? Well, the party pretty much ended after that. Almost everyone came up to me offering help. One of the judges even suggested I look into the definition of mental cruelty with my lawyer. I just told them to do what they knew was right. Alan was one of the last to leave. I saw him limping away, and, well, I took out some of my anger and frustration on him before he left. I heard later that his company found out the whole story and quietly let him go. He had been with them since he graduated, and they refused to provide a reference. He moved to another state and was working at a McDonald's last I heard. After that, I lost interest. Sarah turned to the actress. Did you witness any of this? I stayed until the end, but I didn't see the man again. Your dad returned and paid me the remainder of the money he owed me. I asked him what the evening was all about, but he was clearly upset by then and just said he would tell me someday. Kent and I left after that, but your dad smiled through his tears and suggested I missed my calling and should become an actress. Believe it or not, that got me thinking, and within 2 weeks, I applied to NIDA. I was accepted soon after. Money talks, as they say. Now, I have to call Kent. He's eager to hear the story as soon as I know it. He said he'd wait up all night if he had to. The actress rose to bid her farewells. Goodbye, Sarah. I'll be keeping an eye on your career with great interest. If you ever need a helping hand, don't hesitate to reach out. Wendy, if you ever find yourself in a bind like your sister, feel free to ask for assistance. I've got a few favors owed to me at NIDA. Maria, take care of your husband and these 2 troublemakers. They're all special, each in their own way. Wiping tears from her eyes, she turned back to the younger girls. Based on what your dad said, he had your best interests at heart and did what he had to do when the odds were against him. When he seeks your forgiveness, I suggest you give it wholeheartedly. Too emotional for words, she simply hugged Dave tightly before quickly making her exit before losing her composure. As she walked away, the girls exchanged glances, and Sarah nodded to her dad. "No need to ask, Dad. We forgive you. We barely remember our birth mother. You've always been both father and mother to us when we lived there." Then Maria came along and showed us what a mother should be. They all stood up for a group hug. Dave, who never hid his emotions from his loved ones, shed tears openly. "Thank you, girls. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time, but you can never be sure, can you? I don't know why I ever doubted myself. Just look at both of you. Beautiful, self-assured, healthy, and wise. I must have done something right." Now everyone was crying, the three women assuring Dave he'd been an exceptional father. A cough from the waiter broke the moment. He was holding a large creme caramel dessert. Dave glanced at Maria, who shook her head, indicating she hadn't ordered it. After setting it on the table, the waiter handed Dave a note. It read, "A tough exterior, but a soft, sweet core." Dave passed it to Maria, who chuckled softly. "Looks like she saw through your tough guy act too." Epilogue. 3 time zones away, Martha lay awake, trying not to disturb the overweight slob beside her. When her share from the divorce dried up, she attempted to secure a teaching job in her new state, but without references, she faced challenges. After completing a 3-month bridging course, she landed positions in small schools in remote areas. They paid the bills, but she longed to return to city life. With public schools out of reach, she turned to desperate measures to find work in the private sector. The man lying next to Martha was the chairman of the board at an elite girls' school. She hoped he wouldn't wake up and try to initiate another encounter before he had to leave. The idea made Martha feel nauseous. Following her plan was difficult at times. That plan involved securing a job she could be proud of, so she could reconnect with her daughters and be a part of their lives. It had taken nearly 15 years, but she had finally realized what truly mattered. Martha carefully rolled onto her side, her silent tears soaking the pillow. End. Now, let's return from fiction to reality. "Hey there, don't panic, but I'm texting you from the emergency room. Turns out the new Dyson ball cleaner isn't what I expected. And now, a joke from me, creativity takes courage." Below is an actual, unedited Amazon review on VEET for men hair removal gels sent to me by a friend. I thought I'd share it with you. After being told my nether regions resembled an elderly Rastafarian, I decided to give this product a try. Previous attempts at shaving had been somewhat unsuccessful, and I nearly injured myself trying to reach the more difficult areas. Wanting to be romantic, I decided to surprise my partner on her birthday. I ordered the product well in advance and, working in the North Sea, I considered myself tougher than some of the reviewers. I thought they were just soft office types. How wrong I was. I waited until my partner was in bed, dropping hints about a special surprise, and headed to the bathroom. Initially, everything seemed fine as I applied the gel and waited for it to take effect. However, I didn't have to wait long. At first, there was a gentle warmth, but within seconds, it turned into an intense burning sensation, as if I were being given a painful wedgie. I felt like my head was going to hit the ceiling. Religion hadn't been a big part of my life until that night, but I was willing to convert to anything to stop the burning sensation around my nether regions. Trying to wash off the gel in the sink only resulted in a clogged drain. Through tears, I managed to make my way to the kitchen in search of relief. I pulled out the freezer drawer and grabbed a tub of ice cream, hastily removing the lid and positioning it beneath me for relief. It was a welcome sensation, but short-lived as the ice cream melted quickly and the intense burning sensation returned. Fumbling around in the drawer, I searched for something else, fearing that my vision would soon blur from the pain. I found a bag of frozen sprouts and tore it open, trying to be as quiet as possible. Desperately, I took a handful of sprouts and attempted to apply them between my cheeks, but it wasn't effective. Some of the gel had spread into uncomfortable areas, causing a sensation like a rocket engine firing behind me. In my agony, I even wished for a gay snowman in the kitchen, illustrating the depths of desperation I had reached. My pain-addled mind could only conceive one solution, gently inserting a sprout where no vegetable had gone before. Unfortunately, just as I was in the midst of this strange act, my partner, alerted by the odd noises, decided to investigate. She was greeted by the sight of me, in a compromising position, with strawberry ice cream dripping and muttering about how good it felt. Understandably shocked, she screamed, startling me and causing an involuntary reaction that propelled the sprout in her direction. It certainly wasn't the surprise she was expecting, and explaining the incident to the kids the next day didn't improve my standing. So, in conclusion, Veet removes hair, dignity, and self-respect. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Write your opinion in the comments.